You need to go look at the new yard sign for Kamala Harris and Tim Walz. One of the things Democrats have prided them on for the last 20 years is their design teams are so much better than the Republicans. Y'all, my golden doodle could have designed a better yard sign and better logo than what the Harris-Walz team came up with. Not only that, they made the Harris very tall and the Walz is very small. The Walz on the Harris-Walz sign is so squat and small, an illegal could climb over it and get into the country. That's how open borders they are. They compressed and shrunk the walls on the sign so illegals can still get into the country. And Donald Trump is signaling he intends to make that a big issue still. This is Trump by phone on Fox.
The first thing we're going to do is we're going to drill, baby, drill. And then number two, and I can do lots of things on the first day. It's not one thing or two things or four things. We're going to do lots of things on the first day. But we're going to close up the border. We're going to let people come in, but they have to come in legally.
They have to come in legally. Close up the border, come in legally. Y'all, that's actually, the winning message for the Trump team. Now, here's the thing. In all seriousness, many of you remain concerned that Donald Trump isn't doing what it takes to win. In fact, I want to read you a text message I got from Charlie, who's screening calls. He says, dude, the amount of women calling from all over the country complaining that Trump is losing their friends and just furious he won't stay on message is like nothing I've ever experienced in all these years. They're legitimately upset. These are women in their 30s to some lady and her sister in Kansas City who are in their 90s or 80s rather. I know you don't communicate with the campaign directly all the time, but man, if this is some kind of microcosm of a large reaction, he's in trouble if this continues. They're all begging for is just him to give a vision for the future and attacks on crazy Kamala. That's it. So anecdote is not data. I believe, however, over time that anecdotes turn into data. When you keep hearing something over and over and over and over and over and over and over, those anecdotes tend to become data. In fact, I know a guy who's a marketer, and he says he actually trusts the anecdotes more than the data because the anecdotes tend to be ahead of the data. He says the difference is discernment. If you have one person who complains about something all the time, that's not an anecdote. That's that person's pet peeve. When you have a lot of different people saying the same thing over and over, that tends to be a leading indicator on where the data is going to be. The leading indicator on the data right now is that Kamala Harris has an enthusiasm that Donald Trump has lost, except among his hardcore supporters. That enthusiasm that he lost came in large part from a debate stage in Atlanta, Georgia on Saturday, where Donald Trump decided to spend more time attacking Brian Kemp, the Republican governor of the state, who is already endorsed him and is supporting him, and that governor's wife, than attacking Kamala Harris. Threw him off his game. There does, in truth, seem to be something going on where Trump seems to be off his game. My guess is, in fact, that between a shooting in Pennsylvania and Joe Biden bailing on the race, shifting it dramatically, Donald Trump had it in his head how this was going to go, and it's now not going that way, and he needs to get his head back in the game. This is broken record time because I've already said it twice today, and I want to say it one more time because it really is true. The national media is in the tank for Kamala Harris. They have been complicit. They can deny it all they want, but every American knows the American press conspired with the Democrats to cover up Joe Biden's mental failings. Every single one of you listening now knows that the National Press Corps was in on this. It's one reason I actually believe that if Donald Trump does get elected, he manages to pull it off, he should get rid of the Brady press room and throw the press out of the White House. If Donald Trump got the press corps out of the West Wing and put them in the old executive office building or the new executive office building that's even further away, it would be a win for everyone because the White House press corps conspired with the Democrats to cover up Joe Biden. And it's not just them. Tim Walz did as well. This is Tim Walz standing outside the White House just a month ago
None of us are denying Thursday night was a bad performance. It was a bad hit, if you will, on that. But it doesn't impact what I believe. He's delivering.
Waltz is willing to stand outside the White House, having met with the president, and say that Donald Trump or that Joe Biden is mentally competent. Joe Biden is sharp. Joe Biden is perfectly fine. Kamala Harris and Tim Walz conspired to cover up Joe Biden's mental decline, along with the press corps. So you boot the press corps out of the White House if you get elected, Donald Trump. In the meantime, there's a place called Green Bay. I own a football team that plays there, the National Football League. There's a place called Eau Claire. It's more of a Republican-leaning swing area in the state of Wisconsin. They have media markets. You go into that media market. You sit down with the local anchor. You can spend a day. You can hop around. Say, today we're going to Wisconsin. And in the morning, I'm going to sit down and pre-record an interview in Eau Claire. Then I'm going to hop over to Green Bay and do one there. And then I'm going to hop down to Milwaukee and I'm going to do one there. I'm going to do those. And then on the same day, it's possible for me to hop over to Grand Rapids and Kalamazoo and then go to Detroit and maybe even go up to Traverse City. And I'm going to do a series of pre-recorded interviews there for the newscast that night with the local media. So you've hit Wisconsin and Michigan. They're right next to each other, right across Lake Michigan. You go hit those media markets. You hit those media markets. Maybe you go down to South Bend, Indiana, because that covers southern Michigan and their media market. You hit those. And you do those. You take a Monday. You go do those interviews with the local press. Those are going to air, depending on your time of day for your record, then the 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock newscast and the 10 or 11 o'clock newscast. In Central Time tends to be 10 p.m. Your working class men and women who are trying to stay informed, who are going to decide the election, who aren't on the Twitch stream, they're not on Discord, maybe they listen to Joe Rogan, but not for 2.5 hours. They're going to get your exclusive interview with your local newscaster that's going to play the snot out of that interview because they got the exclusive in their media market. You got 3 or 4 news markets. You got 3 or 4 networks. Everybody who is your core supporter and a whole lot of undecideds are going to tune into that newscast. It doesn't even have to be the most listened to, most watched TV cast. If you know it's big libs at the most listened to, most watched newscast, you go build up one of the others. You build a relationship and people are going to tune in. It's going to help their ratings. They're going to be nice to you because you're helping them with the number one news outlet in that media market by competing against them and giving them an exclusive. Then you hop over to Michigan. You take Monday, you knock out Wisconsin. Maybe you knock out Wisconsin, but let's say you take Wisconsin on Monday, you take Michigan on Tuesday, you go to Grand Rapids, you go to Kalamazoo, you go over to Detroit, maybe up to Traverse City. On Wednesday, you hop over to Erie, then you go down to Youngstown and you bleed over into the Pennsylvania market. Maybe you go to Pittsburgh, Harrisburg, go over to Allentown, go over to Reading, go over to Philly. You do 3 or 4 interviews there the same way you did. And then you know what? The next day, you've done Monday in Wisconsin. You've done Tuesday in Michigan. You've done Wednesday in Pennsylvania. You fly down to Georgia on Thursday. You hit Atlanta. You hit Savannah. Go down to Jacksonville, shore up Florida. Go to Valdosta. That's your Thursday. And then you fly across the country. And you go to Phoenix, and you go to Tucson, and you go to Las Vegas. You end your week in the West. You've hit the local media markets. Fly from Las Vegas, go over to Carson City, go up to Reno, cover those media markets. You've sat down with your local newscast. And what have you done? You've talked about the border. You've talked about border security. You've talked about how illegal aliens are impacting their area. You've talked about how the Harris Wall sign they've made the wall so small the illegal aliens could climb over it because they want open borders. Tim Walz wanted Minnesota to be a sanctuary state. He wants sanctuary cities. He said that he would buy an investment in a ladder company if illegals couldn't come into this country because of Donald Trump's wall. That if Donald Trump made it 25 feet high, he would buy investments in a company that made ladders 30 feet high because we need the illegal aliens coming into this country. You highlight the national security issue. You highlight the terrorists we've already rounded up who've come across the border illegally. You contrast that with Kamala Harris. That's the number one issue for voters right now is illegal immigration. Number two is the economy. You talk about how Minnesota has a massive tax rate, that more people have left the state of Minnesota than have come into Minnesota, and that the Harris-Biden administration, they've wrecked the economy. They brought inflation. They said it was transitory, and it's not. You do local media interviews. You talk about the same issues. You talk about crime. You talk about inflation. You talk about immigration. Crime, inflation, immigration in Grand Rapids. Crime, inflation, immigration in Lansing. Crime, inflation, immigration in Eau Claire. Crime, inflation, and immigration in Atlanta. Crime, inflation, immigration in Las Vegas. Crime, inflation, and immigration in Phoenix. Crime, inflation, immigration in the Charlotte media market. Crime, inflation, immigration in the Pittsburgh market. You fly around the country. You find the local newscasts. You give them exclusives. They all cover it. Everybody watches it. Nobody really cares about your 20-year-old streamer who gave you a Tesla, because no one in their 40s and 50s who works all day has time at night to come home and load up a Twitch channel and find some kid they've never heard of who may have 2 million views, but they may be half of them in Europe. You don't know. But I guarantee you that when you give the interview in Eau Claire, Wisconsin with the local TV station, every single person who watches lives in Eau Claire and is a voter in Eau Claire, and they're going to go vote for you because you talked about crime, inflation, and immigration, and Kamala Harris is talking about good vibes and joy cometh in the morning. There's a way for Trump to redouble his efforts and for him to focus. Here's the problem, and you must understand this and take this to heart. Donald Trump has Chris LaCivita and Susie Wiles. They're very good at their jobs. They know how to run and win campaigns. But the problem is Donald Trump's in charge. And Donald Trump Jr., for that matter, believe they're the best campaign strategists for the campaign. If they listen to Wiles and LaCivita, they're going to win. If they don't, they're going to lose. It's that simple. And right now, they got to get their head back in the game. There's a path for them to win, but right now it seems like their head's not in the game.